I understand the reason why you disagree with my use of what you are calling militaristic terms, which I may only describe as the practical situation on the ground right now, because you are in Washington. You had urged the US and the Israel earlier not to fall into what you called a trap by escalating their disputes with the Iranian government into a military conflict, and that was in 2017. But as of today, you would agree with me, sir, that that is exactly what appears to be playing out. And therefore, I think there is a distinct possibility that Iran, if it realizes that the conflict has broken out. Now, let me give you a slightly elaboration of why I'm saying this to you. I'll take just a minute. Your Royal Highness, Iran would have a good sense of whether the West can escalate this right now. And if the West comes to a conclusion that it does not want to escalate it right now, then the Iranians have the upper hand in any negotiation. Should such a negotiation happen through back channels or otherwise, either through open dialogue or through secret contact or clandestine diplomacy, which you know does happen, in that case, could it be possible that the end game for the regime in Tehran is to renegotiate and reopen the nuclear deal, which is presently in tatters? Because they need that nuclear deal, they need the sanctions lifted, they need the economy to pick up, and they can feel that in turn for agreeing to de-escalate, they might want to take the benefit of resuming a more working relationship with the rest of the world, and using every leverage that they have, including their maritime interests in the Straits of Hormuz, as a negotiating chip. Your response to that?
My job is not to defend the regime's interest. My job is to defend the Iranian people's interest. And what is in conflict with the Iranian people's interest is the survival and continuing existence of a regime that has deprived us of our freedom and our liberties. Therefore, I will challenge and I will stand vis-a-vis any entity, government, foreigners who would think that the status quo should prevail and the Iranian people don't deserve any better and they should be sacrificed in the interest of realpolitik, or as you say, avoiding any kind of escalation. I would not stand for a second and accept that premise that it's okay to let the Iranian people continue to be victims of this regime while the regime is trying to play some kind of strategic compromise with the world. Understand that most of its behavior has been not as a position of strength, but actually weakness. A regime that is strong does not repress its citizenry. A regime that is strong doesn't, after 45 years worth of passage of time, still continue to be aggressive, meddling in the affairs of neighboring states, unless you are willing to say, we have to put up with this religious dictatorship. That's what it is. The world has to accept it as a matter of fact, and therefore we should throw in the white towel and go home. Yeah, of course, that is an eventual possibility, but is it the right moral position to take? What happened to liberty? What happened to freedom? What happened to human rights? What happened to all those values that I believe the Western world has not abandoned, at least as of yet? This is also something to consider, not just an economic issue, not just the kind of elements that you pointed. A lot more is at stake. And therefore, I would still argue that the people of Iran would be able to tell the whole world and demonstrate to the whole world that unlike this regime that is constantly blackmailing you, that is taking ransom money to liberate hostages, and you pay the price for that, and is going to continue to be emboldened as a result. And therefore, it is not by appeasement that you will reduce the conflict. It will be no guarantee that the regime will not continue to do more of what it's done already, because it has proven to do that, especially when it faces weak leadership on the other side. So I point back to what is my proposition to the world. You have never, ever, until this moment, even assumed that it is plausible that this regime will no longer be around. It is plausible that it can collapse as a result of internal pressure. Then do you have a plan for that? Do you have a plan for that alternative? If you don't, you'll be in real dire difficulty. Better yet, start thinking about what that alternative could be and why it is ultimately in your best interest to do that. I'm not asking for the world to come to our rescue for our sake. I'm actually arguing that it is in their own interest to do that, because we both benefiting from the disappearance of an element that has been causing all of this turmoil and disruption and escalation. And I don't think that this regime even understands realpolitik, because when you say realpolitik, means you are a realist and reasonable. Again, a real world that is realistic is expecting the same behavior of a regime that is not reasonable, that is not realistic, that is purely ideological. And that's why it will never come to terms or change its behavior. Herein lies the fundamental argument that I have vis-a-vis the world that says, well, if we are practical, maybe they are practical too. Are they?